The galaxy was vast, but it belonged to the Xenari, or so they believed. For centuries, the Xenari Empire had swept across star systems like a storm, conquering planets and enslaving civilizations. Their warships were legends, their weapons unmatched. To the countless species crushed beneath their heel, the Xenari were gods among insects, untouchable and invincible. But one quiet day, something strange flickered on their radar screens. Far out on the edge of Xenari territory, near the desolate asteroid field known as the Veil, a lone scout ship drifted silently through space. Inside its command center, Commander Kyle leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing at the blip on the screen. It wasn't large, but it moved with purpose. Fast for an asteroid, too deliberate for debris. What is that? Kyle muttered under his breath. He tapped a few commands into the console, magnifying the image. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive ship loomed in the distance, sleek and dark, almost invisible against the blackness of space. Its design was unlike anything the Xenari had ever encountered. No jagged edges or bulky armor plating, just smooth curves and faint glimmers of light along its hull. "Report this immediately," Kyle ordered his crew. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly as he keyed in coordinates to relay the data back to the homeworld. Back on the Xenari capital planet, High Commander Zither stood before a holographic map of the Empire. The towering aliens, golden skin shimmered under the dim lights of the council chamber. His elongated head tilted thoughtfully as he studied the reports streaming in from the border patrols. When Kale's transmission arrived, Zither's thin lips curled into a sneer. "A new ship? Out here?" he said, his deep voice dripping with disdain. "It must be some primitive scavenger vessel, lost and desperate. Send a squadron to investigate, and remind them not to waste resources unless necessary." Zither dismissed the matter entirely. After all, nothing could challenge the might of the Xenari Empire. Meanwhile, aboard the mysterious ship, the Aegis, Captain Elena Voss stared at the EU. Same blip on her own radar. Her sharp green eyes scanned the readouts, her jaw tightening as she processed the information. The Xenari were closing in. "Status report," she barked, turning to her first officer, Lieutenant Marcus Kane. "They've sent 3 ships," Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the console. "Armed cruisers, standard patrol configuration. No sign of heavy artillery yet." Elena nodded. She turned to face the rest of her bridge crew, her expression grim but resolute. "Prepare for contact. Shields online, weapons hot, but hold your fire unless provoked. We don't start this fight, but we sure as hell better finish it if they do." The crew sprang into action, their movements precise and efficient. The Aegis hummed with energy as its systems came alive. Though outwardly calm, Elena's mind raced. Humanity hadn't ventured this far into uncharted space in decades, not since Earth became uninhabitable. Now, after years of hiding, they'd finally been discovered, and by the Xenari, no less. As the Xenari cruisers approached, their comms crackled to life. A harsh guttural voice filled the Aegis bridge. "Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in Xenari territory. Identify yourself and prepare to surrender." Elena exchanged a glance with Marcus before stepping closer to the comm panel. "This is Captain Elena Voss of the United Earth Fleet," she said, her tone steady. "We mean no harm, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." There was a pause followed by a low laugh. "Earth Fleet? Never heard of you. You're either lying or incredibly foolish. Surrender now, or we'll destroy you." Elena clenched her fists but kept her voice level. "You don't want to mess with us," the Xenari commander scoffed. "Bold words for someone so outnumbered. Very well, you leave us no choice." At his signal, the cruisers opened fire. Bright streaks of plasma lanced through space, hurtling toward the Aegis, but instead of panicking, Elena smiled. "Shields up," she ordered. "Return fire, non-lethal only." The Aegis shuddered as the plasma bolts struck its shields, but the impact barely registered. Then, with a single press of a button, the human warship unleashed its response, a pulse of energy that rippled outward like a wave. The Xenari cruisers froze mid-flight, their systems completely disabled. Silence fell over the battlefield. What did you do? Marcus asked, staring wide-eyed at the readings. Our EMP weapon, Elena explained, her lips curving into a satisfied smirk, disrupts electronics without causing physical damage. Let's see how they handle that. On board the lead cruiser, Commander Kale stared in disbelief as his instruments went dark. His ship was dead in the water, powerless and vulnerable. For the first time in his long career, fear crept into his heart. These newcomers weren't primitives. They were something else entirely. Back on the Zanari homeworld, High Commander Zyther listened to Kale's frantic report with growing irritation. You let a single unknown ship disable 3 cruisers? He snapped, slamming his fist onto the table. Pathetic. Their technology, it's beyond anything we've seen, Kale stammered. They didn't even use conventional weapons, just a single pulse. Enough! Zyther interrupted, his glowing red eyes narrowing. If these humans think they can challenge the Zainari Empire, they're gravely mistaken. Assemble a full fleet. We'll crush them and send a message to anyone else who dares oppose us. Hours later, the Zanari fleet arrived, an imposing armada of battleships, destroyers, and carriers. They surrounded the Aegis in a tight formation, cutting off any chance of escape. Once again, the comms crackled to life. This is High Commander, Zyther of the Zainari Empire, a booming voice declared. Surrender now or face annihilation. Elena took a deep breath. She knew they couldn't win this fight outright, not against such overwhelming odds. But retreat wasn't an option, either. If humanity wanted a future in this galaxy, they needed to stand their ground. We won't surrender, she replied firmly. But neither will we cower. If you attack us, you'll regret it. Zyther chuckled darkly. Bold words, human. Let's see if your actions match them. The order came down, and the Zanari opened fire. Plasma bolts, missiles, and laser beams rained down on the Aegis, lighting up the void with explosions. The human ship rocked violently, its shields straining under the barrage, yet despite the chaos, Elena remained calm. Marcus, status? She called out. Shields holding at 60%, he reported, sweat beading on his forehead. Their firepower is intense, but we can take more hits. Good. Keep evading, and prep the gravity well generator. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The gravity well generator was experimental, a risky piece of tech designed to warp spacetime itself. Using it could save them, or tear the ship apart. As the battle raged on, the Zanari grew bolder. They closed in, launching boarding pods to breach the Aegis. Elena watched the monitors closely, waiting for the perfect moment. Now, she shouted. With a deafening hum, the gravity well generator activated. Space around the battlefield twisted and warped, pulling the Zainari ships off course. Fighters spiraled wildly, larger vessels collided, and the entire armada descended into chaos. For a brief moment, everything froze. When the distortion subsided, the Zainari fleet was scattered, many ships damaged or destroyed. On board the Aegis, some of the crew erupted into cheers, but Elena raised a hand to silence them. This isn't over, she said grimly. They'll regroup, and next time they'll come harder. High Commander Zyther seethed with rage as he surveyed the wreckage of his fleet. He had underestimated the humans and paid dearly for it, but he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. As the two sides retreated to lick their wounds, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy buzzed with whispers after the battle near the Veil. News of the mysterious human warship, the Aegis, had spread like wildfire. For centuries, the Zanari had crushed every uprising, silenced every rebellion, and erased every challenge to their dominance. But now, for the first time in living memory, there was hope. Hope came in the form of humanity. On board the Aegis, Captain Elena Voss stood alone in her quarters, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the viewport, pale and weary from days without rest. The victory against the Zanari fleet had been costly, too costly. Shields were down to 30%, repairs were ongoing, and morale among the crew was fragile. Yet despite the losses, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Captain, a voice called softly behind her. She turned to See Lieutenant Marcus Kane standing in the doorway, his face lined with exhaustion but determination burning in his eyes. We've decrypted some of the data we pulled from the Xenari ships. You need to see this. Elena nodded and followed him to the bridge. On one of the main screens, a map of the galaxy lit up with glowing red dots. Xenari strongholds, supply lines, and enslaved worlds. Among them were smaller blue markers scattered across the map. What are these? Elena asked, pointing to the blue dots. Rebel factions, Marcus explained. Species that have resisted the Xenari for years but haven't had the means to fight back effectively. Some are former slaves. Others are remnants of civilizations the Xenari destroyed. They're all desperate for help, and they've heard about us. Elena leaned forward, her mind racing. Humanity couldn't win this war alone, not against an empire as vast and powerful as the Xenari, but if they could unite the oppressed species of the galaxy under one banner. We'll call it the Resistance, she said firmly. Reach out to these factions. Tell them we're here to help, but make it clear that joining us means risking everything. If we fail, the Xenari will show no mercy. Marcus hesitated. Do you really think they'll trust us? We're strangers to them. They don't have a choice, Elena replied, her voice softening. Neither do we. Over the next few weeks, the Aegis traveled from system to system, meeting with rebel leaders and forging alliances. Each encounter was tense. Some groups welcomed humanity with open arms, while others eyed them with suspicion. One such meeting took place on a water-covered moon inhabited by the Talons, an aquatic species enslaved by the Xenari for generations. As Elena stepped into the dimly lit chamber where the Talon Council gathered, she felt the weight of their stares. Their translucent bodies shimmered faintly in the low light, their large black eyes unblinking as they studied her. You claim to be different from the Xenari, said their leader, a towering figure named Kalith. His voice echoed through the room, deep and resonant. But how can we believe you? Elena met his gaze without flinching. Because we've suffered too. Our homeworld was destroyed. Our people scattered across the stars. We know what it's like to lose everything, and we're done letting tyrants decide our fate. Kalith considered her words for a long moment before nodding slowly. Very well. The Talons will join your cause, but know this. If you betray us, not even your advanced weapons will save you. By the time the Aegis returned to its hidden base, the resistance had grown significantly. Ships from various species docked alongside the human fleet, their crews exchanging stories of suffering and survival. It was messy, chaotic, and far from perfect, but it was a start. Meanwhile, back on the Xenari homeworld, High Commander Zyther paced furiously in his command chamber. The defeat at the Veil still burned in his mind, a stain on his otherwise flawless record. To make matters worse, reports of rebellions breaking out across the Empire flooded in daily. Entire sectors were slipping out of control, and the humans were at the center of it all. We cannot allow this to continue, Zyther growled, slamming his fist onto the table. Activate the Ecliptica. We end this now. The Ecliptica was the crown jewel of the Xenari fleet, a monstrous dreadnought armed with a star-killing cannon capable of obliterating entire solar systems. Its mere presence inspired terror, and Zyther intended to use it to crush the Resistance once and for all. Word of the Ecliptica's deployment reached the Resistance quickly. Panic rippled through the ranks as everyone realized what was coming. Even Elena felt a chill run down her spine when she saw the schematics Marcus had pieced together. This thing could wipe out half the galaxy if we let it, Marcus said, grimly, pointing to the massive weapon mounted on the ship's hull. It fires a concentrated beam that destabilizes stars, causing them to collapse into supernovas. There's no way we can take it head on. Elena clenched her fists. Then we don't. We hit it where it hurts, infiltrate and disable the weapon before they can use it. It was a risky plan, but they didn't have any other options. With the Resistance fleet stretched thin defending multiple fronts, Elena knew they couldn't afford another direct confrontation with the Xenari. Instead, she proposed splitting their forces. Most of the fleet would engage the Ecliptica in a diversionary battle, drawing its attention away from the real objective. Meanwhile, a small strike team would sneak aboard the dreadnought and sabotage the star-killing cannon. Leading the infiltration mission would be Marcus and Salus, a young Zenari defector who had joined the Resistance after escaping enslavement. Though mistrusted by many, Salus proved invaluable thanks to his knowledge of Zenari technology and tactics. The day of the assault arrived. As the Resistance fleet approached the Ecliptica, chaos erupted. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, debris spiraled through space, and energy beams crisscrossed the battlefield like deadly spiderwebs. The humans fought with everything they had, holding the line just long enough for Marcus and Salus to slip aboard the enemy ship. Inside the Ecliptica, the air was thick with tension. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and patrols marched through the corridors with weapons drawn. Marcus and Salus moved silently, sticking to the shadows as they made their way deeper into the vessel. "This way," Salus whispered, gesturing toward a narrow maintenance shaft. "The core chamber is heavily guarded, but we can bypass it through here." Crawling through the cramped passage, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the complexity of the Zenari engineering. Every panel, every wire seemed designed to intimidate and overwhelm. But he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. When they finally reached the core chamber, they found themselves face to face with a squad of Zenari soldiers. A fierce firefight broke out, forcing Marcus and Salus to take cover behind a console. Bullets ricocheted off metal walls, sparks flying everywhere. "We can't hold them off forever," Salus shouted over the din. "Then don't," Marcus yelled back. "I'll handle the virus upload, you cover me." With a nod, Salus rose to his feet, firing wildly to draw the soldiers' attention. Marcus seized the opportunity, darting toward the main terminal. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he uploaded the virus designed to disable the star-killing cannon. Seconds felt like hours as the progress bar inched forward. Just as it reached 99%, a Zenari soldier lunged at Marcus, knocking him to the ground. Desperate, Marcus swung his pistol around and fired, sending the alien sprawling. "Done," he gasped, scrambling to his feet. But their troubles weren't over yet. The virus triggered a cascade of alarms, locking down the entire ship. Salus grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him toward an escape pod bay. "We need to go. Now," he urged. They barely made it inside the pod before the doors sealed shut behind them. As the pod launched into space, the Ecliptica shuddered violently, its star-killing cannon collapsing in on itself. Out in the void, the Resistance fleet cheered. As the dreadnought limped away, its weapon disabled. The battle wasn't won, but the tide had turned. Back on the Aegis, Elena watched the retreating Zenari forces with a mixture of relief and resolve. "They'll regroup," she said quietly to Marcus, "and when they do, we'll be ready." High Commander Zither seethed with fury as his prized weapon drifted powerless through space. He vowed revenge, but deep down he couldn't ignore the gnawing doubt creeping into his mind. Humanity had proven it wouldn't back down, and neither would the Resistance. The Resistance had won a great victory against the Zenari, but it wasn't enough. The Ecliptica's defeat had weakened the Zenari Empire, but their grip on the galaxy remained strong. High Commander Zither still ruled from the heart of the Empire, the homeworld itself, and his ultimate weapon, the AI hive mind, continued to control every aspect of Zenari society. To truly end the war, the Resistance would need to strike at the source. Captain Elena Voss stood before her crew in the briefing room of the Aegis, her voice steady despite the weight of what lay ahead. "This is it," she said, her green eyes scanning the faces of those gathered. "The final push. If we succeed, the Zenari Empire falls, but if we fail—" She paused, letting the gravity of the moment sink in. "We don't have the luxury of failure." The plan was simple yet perilous. While the main fleet engaged the Zenari Armada in a massive space battle, a small strike team led by Salus and Lieutenant Marcus Kane would infiltrate the homeworld and destroy the AI hive mind. Without it, the Zenari forces would collapse into chaos, giving the Resistance the opening they needed to reclaim the galaxy. But everyone knew the odds were slim. The homeworld was the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy, bristling with automated defenses, orbital cannons, and legions of soldiers. Getting close to the hive mind would require skill, courage, and more than a little luck. As the resistance fleet approached the homeworld, tension crackled through the air. Ships lined, up in formation, engines roaring as they prepared for the assault. On board the Aegis, Elena gave the order. Engage. The battle erupted instantly, a cacophony of explosions and energy beams lighting up the void. The Zynari fought viciously, their ships swarming like insects defending their nest. Plasma bolts streaked across space, tearing through hulls and sending debris spiraling into the darkness. Back on the bridge, Elena clenched the railing as the Aegis shook violently under enemy fire. Shields holding at 40%, Marcus reported, his hands flying over the console. We're drawing their attention away from the infiltration team, but we can't keep this up forever. Then make every shot count, Elena replied sharply. Her mind raced, calculating angles and trajectories, trying to anticipate the Zynari's next move. This wasn't just a fight, it was a chess match, and humanity couldn't afford to lose. Meanwhile, Salus and Marcus hurtled toward the surface of the homeworld aboard a stolen Zynari transport. Disguised in enemy uniforms, they managed to slip past the initial checkpoints, blending in with the chaos of reinforcements heading to the front lines. This feels too easy, Marcus muttered, glancing out the window at the sprawling city below. Towering spires of black metal pierced the sky, surrounded by glowing energy fields that pulsed with power. It's not, Salus said grimly. We haven't even gotten inside yet. Once on the ground, the two men moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine streets of the capital city. Automated drones patrolled overhead, their red sensors scanning for intruders. Every step was fraught with danger, every corner a potential ambush. Finally, they reached the fortress-like structure housing the AI hive mind. Its entrance was guarded by a phalanx of elite Zynari soldiers, their weapons trained on anyone who dared approach. Salus took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he had to do. I'll distract them, he whispered to Marcus. You get inside and upload the virus. Before Marcus could protest, Salus stepped forward, raising his hands in surrender. I'm here to defect, he shouted, his voice trembling but clear. I know secrets about the resistance. They sent me to sabotage the hive mind. The guards exchanged wary glances before lowering their weapons slightly. As they closed in to apprehend him, Salus activated a hidden EMP device, disabling their equipment and creating a diversion. Seizing the opportunity, Marcus sprinted past the confusion and slipped inside the fortress. Inside, the corridors were eerily silent, the walls lined with pulsating conduits that hummed with energy. Marcus followed the map Salus had provided, his heart pounding as he drew closer to the core chamber. When he finally entered, he froze in awe. The AI hive mind was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a towering mass of interconnected nodes, each glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a living thing, its presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. Marcus approached the terminal and inserted his data chip, initiating the virus upload. The screen flickered to life, displaying a progress bar that crawled agonizingly slowly toward completion. Behind him, the doors burst open and a group of Zynari soldiers stormed in, weapons drawn. Marcus dove behind a console as plasma bolts flew overhead, narrowly missing him. He returned fire, taking down one soldier before ducking back into cover. Come on, he muttered, watching the progress bar inch forward. 70%, 80%, 90%. Just as the upload reached 99%, a voice echoed through the chamber. Salus staggered in, bloodied but alive, clutching a stolen rifle. Marcus, go! Salus fired wildly, buying Marcus precious seconds to finish the upload. With a final beep, the virus activated, causing the hive mind to shudder violently. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the entire structure began to shake. We need to go. Now. Marcus yelled, grabbing Salus's arm. They barely made it, out before the core chamber imploded, collapsing in on itself in a cascade of sparks and smoke. Outside, the fortress crumbled, sending shockwaves rippling through the city. High above the planet, the effects of the hive mind's destruction became immediately apparent. Zynari ships faltered mid-flight, their systems offline without the central AI to guide them. The Resistance seized the advantage, pressing their attack with renewed vigor. On board the Aegis, Elena watched as the tide turned decisively in their favor. "It's done," she whispered, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over her. So many lives had been lost, so much sacrificed, but the galaxy was finally free. When the dust settled, the surviving members of the Resistance gathered to mourn their fallen comrades. Monuments were erected in their honor, stories passed down to ensure their bravery would never be forgotten. Captain Voss delivered a somber speech, her voice cracking with emotion. "We didn't fight for revenge or glory," she said. "We fought for freedom, for every species that suffered under tyranny. Today we take back our future, together." In the years that followed, the galaxy entered a new era of peace and cooperation. Humanity played a key role in rebuilding shattered worlds, sharing technology and resources with former enemies turned allies. The Talons, Kralix, and countless others thrived once more, united by a shared vision of coexistence. Elena eventually retired, passing the torch to a new generation of leaders. She spent her days gazing at the stars from a quiet outpost on the edge of explored space, reflecting on all they had achieved and all that still lay ahead. One evening, as she sat alone on the observation deck, Marcus joined her, holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. "Thinking about the next adventure?" he asked with a grin. Elena smiled faintly. "There's always another horizon to chase. Somewhere out there, among the stars, new challenges await." And though the galaxy was at peace, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's journey was far from over.